it's funny. If 5 years ago, one of you were to tell me that this is where I would be and this is what I would be doing with my life, I would have laughed at you and said, you don't know me very well. But the truth is, I didn't know myself very well. I honestly didn't know myself at all. I was always trying to figure out what purpose I served and trying to justify ways to hide my destructive tendencies. I was always moving from foster home to foster home. My life felt desolate. I was depressed. I'd lost all vitality. The only things I seemed to be good at were self-mutilation and detestation. I didn't like who I was, and I really didn't like who I was becoming. So I knew I needed to make some sort of change. I needed something different. I decided to go to an alternative school called Street Front. It's a little portable with maybe 20 kids, grades 8, 9 to 10, and they run 3 times a week. So you might ask, like, why did I choose this school? Well, to be completely honest with you, I hated running. So it seemed kind of perfect, something different. Soon after attending Street Front, I ran my first half marathon, thanks to the support of the teachers. I realized when I ran this half marathon, I had a passion. Something I thought I passionately disliked ended up being something I passionately really liked. It was the hardest thing I'd ever endured, the hardest thing I ever did. Until 2 months later, I got a phone call from my sister. She was kind of screaming, and she was crying, and I didn't really understand anything she said, except for when she said they're taking her body away. My mom and my best friend, without warning or goodbye, had passed away. What do you do? What do you do? I didn't want to be here anymore. I felt lost. If I thought I was depressed before, this was the moment that changed my life. But I sat down with my sister, and we made a promise to ourselves and to each other to be the person she didn't get the chance to be, and to make her proud. We run because we can. It's the title of my talk. We do the things that are difficult in life because we have the opportunity to. Some people don't get that chance. My mom was one of them. When I first heard that saying, I thought it was kind of ridiculous, because I'm like, I don't run because I can. I run because my teachers tell me I have to. It's part of my PE class, right? But it was when I ran my first full marathon that I truly understood what it meant. If something doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And I found doing challenges like running marathons, and that's 42 kilometers. It took me 5 hours. 5 hours of pain and suffering, and all I wanted to do was give up and quit. But it reminded me of the challenges that I faced in my life that I didn't want. I brought this on myself. It made everything come full circle. So, a few months later, after running my full marathon, the vice principal of the school came down to speak at our little portable. And he said, hey guys, I want to take you to Africa. I want you to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I thought he was crazy. We're an alternative school. We're a group of youth at risk, inner city kids. Why us? Why not a rich West Side school? Why are you picking kids that have been beat to the ground, stomped on, and told that they're not going to make it anywhere? Because he saw something in us. He saw a light. He knew that we were worth it. And soon after, I learned the same. That's a whiskey jack. That was up in Elfin Lakes. After I found out about the Kilimanjaro trip, I wanted to get chosen. I had to. I had to go on this trip. So I went to a school called Take a Hike. Funny name, I know. But they were formulated around camping. Mind you, I hated camping. And on these trips, you weren't allowed music. You weren't allowed cigarettes. It was just you, students, and nature. On this trip, 4 days snowshoeing, I learned something about self-care. The smallest thing, brushing your teeth in the morning, things I took for granted in the city. You know, really just taking care of yourself. You know, if you don't care for yourself, how can you care for other people in your life? This was an 8-day canoe trip around Harrison Lake. And on this trip, I learned something about self-worth. I never felt worthy of anything in my life. I didn't think I deserved anything. But the thing is, and the thing that I've learned, is that children are wired for struggle and failure. But every child is worthy of love and belonging. We all have a place. We all have a purpose. Maybe we don't know what it is now. I know people that are 60 years old and they still don't know. But that's the theme. Finding your passion. Knowing why you're here. We all find it out at some point in our lives, and that was the trip when I found mine. This was our last trip of the year. It was a 10-day backpacking trip through the North Coast Trail. It was the only female. But on this trip, I learned something about self-love. You know, I hated myself. I did everything to hurt myself. I didn't go to school. I would talk back to my teachers. I would put any kind of toxin in my body that I could. But on this trip, I realized, you know, maybe there is something to love. Maybe there's a light in me too. So I graduated to take a hike, and I never thought I'd finish high school, but I did, and I made the honor roll, and I was asked to be valedictorian for my school. These trips taught me more about myself than I ever thought possible. Like I said, I didn't know who I was. I didn't like who I was becoming. And after these trips, I kind of thought, maybe I do like who I'm becoming. March of last year, I got to go to Africa. I was chosen to be one of the kids. And I was freaking out, you know, camping, hiking, trying to train, packing my bags, double-checking my checklist. I couldn't believe it. There was still a part of me that wondered, why me? You know? The youngest kid that went on the trip, he was 13 years old. A lot of the kids that went on the trip, they couldn't afford hiking stocks, never mind the $6,000 it took to go. But we fundraised for, I think, 3 years, and 15 students got to go. I didn't just want to go on this trip because it's Africa and I wanted to climb one of the tallest mountains in the world. I wanted it to be something special. So I decided I wanted to bring my mom with me. So on the plane, 5 days up the mountain, I held her ashes in my jacket, and on the last day, it was summit day. It was brutal. We woke up at midnight, it was freezing cold, minus 20. You know, you're in high altitude, I couldn't think straight. But we started hiking, the porters carried our bags for us. And I remember hitting this wall. I remember falling to my knees in tears because I couldn't go any farther. It was too hard. I didn't think I could make it. And then the porters, they started singing. They started singing, "You Are My Sunshine." My mom used to sing that song to me when I was a little girl. And it almost felt like someone pushed me from behind. And I know it was my mom. I didn't bring her there. She brought me. I didn't carry her to the top. She carried me there. And it was her that wanted to get there. And that's where she is today. So there I was, the roof of Africa. I held my hand up in the air, and I watched her ashes blow away into the wind above the clouds, where she was meant to be, the most free-spirited woman I know. We run because we can. We do the things that are difficult in life because we have the opportunity to. Some people just don't get that chance. When I set her free, I was subconsciously doing the same for myself. I realized I wasn't bound by my depression. I wasn't bound by my anxiety, my ADHD, my PTSD. There's something that we say is normal. There's no such thing as normal. There's no such thing as weird or different. People don't talk about mental health issues. People don't talk about suicide. I ran a workshop last week about suicide prevention, and when I asked all the teenagers in the room who has ever felt like they don't know why they're here or they don't want to be here, not one person didn't raise their hand. So this is where I am today. Well, not really there, but I feel like it. I got accepted into university. I get to work with youth. I'm here speaking to all of you. I'm an ambassador for the Vancouver Marathon Society, and for a kid that went to PE class twice in grade 8, that just hated herself more than anything in this world, to be where I am today, it made me realize it's possible. You can come from the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean and climb one of the tallest mountains in the world, and this may sound cliche, but if you believe in yourself. Self-love, self-care, self-worth. You can do anything you set your mind to, and you can get through the hardest things in the world. It's all about looking on the bright side. So thank you for listening.